So I'm not sure where is the registration and the PowerPoint because I was not present in the first one. So maybe Juan and Jorge, who are also one of the organizers, can shed some light on this.
Yes, just a second. I'm looking for the folder.
Okay, in the meanwhile, Jorge looks for the folder. Anyway,
okay, and then I can ask the second question.
Go ahead.
Okay, regarding the procedures that were illustrated during the first meeting, I was wondering if these are a kind of definitive format to install the software and to make all the connection with the hardware that is already present at the pilot site.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my view, this is a very, very complex procedure that requires some kind of expertise, and in the view of promoting digitalization in rural areas and thinking about the average level of skill that characterize, talking about the Piedmont pilot, the average user in our region. I have some doubt that such a complex approach can meet or can become popular among the potential users. And so I was. The question is the following: is this the final procedure, or you are thinking about kind of I don't know, more friendly or more usable also by not expert people?
Well, well, first of all, thanks for the question, because I think personally it's quite interesting. And if that for you was difficult, maybe today it would be even more difficult, because today we are becoming more technical. Now, going serious and answering your question, we can take the procedure that we saw for the last week as the final one. So that's the standard procedure, right? And well, there are parts they cannot be skipped. So if you need to create the organization, you need to create the organization. That is not something we can do in another way, right? We are going to set up a standardized procedure to do things, and they will be technical for sure. Now, once this procedure is settled and let's say adopted and everything works, then we can take this feedback, like the one you are giving, which for me it's really rich. So don't take this introduction as something like bad. It's just the opposite, because once this is settled, going to this, for instance, in the Piemonte, right, region, and trying to extract what are the complex parts and what are the things that hinder its adoption, that's the value for me. And then we can try to simplify the process. But first of all, I think it's very difficult to start with a simplified process. We first need to have a process, and then we can simplify it. And on the other hand, I'm quite optimistic on this side, but at the same time, I'm a bit concerned, because at the end of the day, we cannot just remove the technical parts. So something technical will always be there. So let's see where we can find a balance between simplicity, but at the same time, technicity, I guess that would be the word.
Andrea, may I add just yep. Oh, thank you. Just complementing what Andrea was saying, what we saw on the first session, how to install the node and how to register. Those two processes, we don't plan change very much. Well, the registration of the account is a pretty much standard way of registering into some account, into some platform. So that would almost 100% for sure remain the same. And the installation of the node, we are working on improving the process, but actually the automated, let's call it software for installation that we showed on the first of the first session is quite it's already an abstraction of what it used to be. That was more complex when you had to install all the software separately. But we take your feedback and we will try to make it a bit more simple if possible.
Okay, thank you. It was important to me to understand if it was how the level of interactivity between us and you was open or not. Please take into consideration what I just said, because as a first assessment, just to share the approach that I had to follow in the pilot was not to explain this the procedure that you just mentioned, because since I know the people working at the site, I knew that could have been a very, how can I say, not really well accepted, as this could mean. I mean, they already have a consultant that is me, and that's my job to understand the things that you're explaining. But in the view of increasing the impact of AURORAL over the region, my main concern is that it's very difficult so far to approach the basics, or to register and to install the node. I was thinking of farmers in marginal areas that probably the procedure that you have shown, I understand the technical aspect, but could be a very big obstacle. So I'm just providing you this feedback in a very constructive way. I don't want to criticize. I understand all the difficulties that you are going through. So it's just for discussion. Thank you.
No, Davide, it's just the opposite. I think it's really valuable what you're mentioning. And actually, if you have ideas on not on how to technically simplify things, but how to, as you mentioned, right, explain or make for others what you think it would be simpler for them, please actually let us know, because with that information we can work with. We cannot ensure we can do it, but we can work with. And it's just the opposite. We need that information. Exactly. Right. And
thank you again. Sorry for opening this. This part.
It's the place where to open it. So
okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Don't
you.
apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you, Davide. So if someone else has any question or also concerns like Davide, or just thoughts, please be my guest. Ask.
Yes. Also, one thing that Davide said, that he as consultant is first trying to understand or following these workshops, how AURORAL works, and then after he will understand it, he will go and approach the pilot. I think that's also a good idea. Like, not throughout these 5 sessions we will explain the main steps, so you can test it first on, for instance, Davide as consultant can test it and see how it works, more or less, even try to test something. So we don't expect that today you already go on and try to install it in the pilot, but more like you understand how it works, you give us some feedback, and at the end of these first 5 sessions, we can already think about going to the pilot with more information, and us as developers of the platform know what else we need to do in order to make things easier for you. And regarding this way of installing, we have to take into account that also it needs to be we try to have a standard way of installation across different systems and also machines that don't have graphical interfaces, and that's why it looks like it looks right now. But maybe some other options can be assessed in the future. Okay, thank you. That's my only comment.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for me here, the keyword, and with this I will actually take the chance to start with the talk. The key here for me is sharing the same vocabulary. So when we will talk with you, you will maybe not understand all the dimension of what we are talking right now, but we will understand each other. This is quite similar to what I'm going to present today, which is the semantic interoperability. Okay, so let's start first with the index. Okay, so I don't know if you had the chance to read this W3C standard, the thing descriptions. If you didn't, don't worry. It's something we are going to see today. And well, I'm not going for the homework for the next session. Let's leave that for the end. And well, what are we going to see today, basically? Okay, so the idea today is to start talking about the W3C Web of Things, which is a group that promotes standard. We are going to dig into the details in a few slides. And from here, the idea is that you have a minimum idea of the discovery, okay, in AURORAL. This is not the session in which we are going to go in depth for the discovery, just giving you a shallow introduction. And then what we are interested here is talking about the thing descriptions, okay? And that's why we recommend, we recommended to read here. Can I write here with this? I'm not sure. Oh, yes. So we recommended to read this for you, okay? But if you didn't, don't worry, okay? That's not a problem. Then we will have a small demo, and then we will have the break. Okay, we will try to stay in the schedule, and then we will talk a bit about the interoperability related to the adapters, which will be the main topic of the next sessions, which is the pillar element of the platform. So that I would bet to say that this is the most important and crucial part for the integration, right? So let's start. I'm not why this is not passing now. Okay. So the challenges that AURORAL needs to face. Sorry, do you still see the green?
Yes, we do.
I'm not able to remove it. So what the heck? Let me see if I can. Oh yes, it's because I was in the full screen. Okay. So going back to the challenges, we have mainly 3 challenges, okay, that we are going to address today. The interoperability, okay. What is interoperability? Well, basically is what we were discussing at the beginning at human level, but the interoperability is for the machine level, okay. Is the ability of the systems to exchange data transparently, but more important, to consume that data transparently. And that is achieved by establishing a common language between or a common knowledge, which we even better, between the different parts of the communication. And once that knowledge or that vocabulary, if we speak in terms of people, is settled, then we are going to understand each other, okay? And then the discovery, of course, which you can imagine, in AURORAL, we will have a lot of nodes with different data coming from different pilots, and that means topics and domains. So here it will be very important to find, basically, that's the keyword, find things. And finally, we have the validation. These 2 other processes, the understanding the data and consuming the data transparently, and also the discovery, always have to occur under the roof of the validation, right? So for this, we have developed the AURORAL node, and you can see here different of its components, okay? These are not all of them, just the ones we are interested in today. Now you can see how they are also aligned with the different minimum interoperability mechanisms that we have spoke before during other meetings. Okay, so today we are going to focus namely in the semantic interoperability and syntactic interoperability. Okay, which is of course the modules that address the challenge of interoperability, and they are namely implemented with the W3C standards. Okay, this is a typo, it's not the Web of Things, but it's AURORAL, RDF, and also the reusing standard ontologies. Okay, now the discovery again is implemented through standards from the W3C, and in this case it's correct, it's the Web of Things, in which we will talk in a few slides. And finally, for the validation, again, we are going to settle our approach on top of the standards. So as you can see here, the key is using standards. And again, this is related to what I was mentioning before. In order to understand each other, it's important to establish a common frame. And the standards by consensus, so standards that are chosen by consensus, provide that role of communication and understanding. So that's why in AURORAL, you will see we always are going to try to settle on top of the standards. Okay. So today, basically, we are going to check a bit these boxes in color. You can see that we have others that are also based on W3C standards, but those are for other moments. Okay. So let's start by discovery. Okay. So just a bit introduction to position and to understand what we are. The words we are going to throw, right? So what is the Web of Things? Well, first of all, the W3C, okay, it's an international organization of people or companies, universities, and they gather each other to promote standards. Now, they split into small subgroups, okay? Well, they are not small subgroups, they are very large subgroups, but let's say in smaller groups. And one of these groups is the Web of Things. Okay, and this Web of Things focuses on the IoT field and the web. Okay, and this group is active, of course, and they promote new standards, but also improve existing standards. Okay, so the bottom line of this group, the goal, it's what you have in the third bullet, is basically trying to fight the fragmentation of the IoT. Okay, using and extending standardized web technologies. Okay. And the goal is to provide standards, and the most known one is this metadata standard called theme descriptions, and also other reusable technologies, okay? For instance, the discovery, which we are going to talk in a few seconds. And the idea here is to enable the integration of IoT platforms and application across the web, okay? So bottom line, these are guys who promote standards. Now, one of the standards in which we are interested in is the discovery proposal. Okay, this is still a draft, but is going to be published as standards this year, very soon, actually. Basically, what it specifies, among other things, is how to manage theme descriptions. Okay, which are documents. We are going to dig into the details in a few slides about these theme descriptions, but basically are documents that have contextual data. Okay. Describing something. So we want to manage this, store them, and then perform discovery over them. How? Well, using, in this case, a standard query language for semantic discovery called Sparkle. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with, but if you Google it a bit, you will find it. Okay. Well, when the time comes, we will also give you an introduction to Sparkle. Okay. And also they specify how to validate these theme descriptions. Okay, you have here a link to the standard if you're interested in, but actually you do not need to worry about this because this component, is internally being used, and actually one of the candidate recommendations inside the AURORAL node. So for you, this will be quite transparent. You do not need to worry about the discovery itself, just how to use it, and that's it. Okay. And now going to how to use it. Well, and here it comes the most interesting part of today's technical meeting regarding this Web of Things. That are the theme descriptions. So what are these theme descriptions? Well, basically it's a standard or recommendation is the same model, okay, that describes IoT devices or things on the web in general. So things is something very general, okay? And they specify their metadata and their interactions, okay? To give you a very small idea of what this means, they are kind of, but it's not the same, just kind of, a Swagger, okay? The Swagger specifies the interaction, that is true. This thing description specifies the interaction, and that is true. But these thing descriptions go beyond and allow you to specify metadata that then it can be used for discovery. So it's a step beyond. And they do this thanks to the format and the model, which is an ontology they have. And the format, they provide you usually the thing descriptions in JSON LD 1.1. Okay. What is this JSON LD 1.1? Well, you have an excerpt here on the right, and you may see that it looks quite, it's not exactly quite a plain JSON. So the only difference, and the only actual difference, is this context on the top, which is always mandatory to have, and maybe here some keys like @type. Okay, but then you can use this JSON as a plain JSON. For end users, this is a JSON, but it's not a JSON. It's actually RDF, and it has this semantic layer that allows to perform the semantic discovery, the semantic validation, and many other things. Okay. This model, this JSON, have a fixed structure, so we cannot just make up the structure. If you want to dig in the details of the structure, you have the link or the QR. If you have a mobile phone on your hands, you have here quite the whole structure, draw as boxes. But I'm not interested right now in the detail of the structure itself. Okay. So these thing descriptions can be written in a very simple way, which is a bit what we are aiming to, or they can be really, really complex, okay? And in this case, for the moment, we are not interested in having something really complex. Rather, we prefer something simple, but good. So how actually they look like? Well, allow me to use this scenario, which is the, when I talk, I usually, also Jorge sometimes, uses this anonymous cow scenario. Okay, in this scenario it's not anonymous because we are not talking about privacy or access, but basically we have a farm, okay, and this farm has cows, and these cows have collars. Okay, now these collars will need to be integrated into Aurora. Once they are integrated, we need to describe the endpoints so other nodes from Aurora can access these collars, right? And what these collars will provide to the platform? Well, three main things. One is the GPS location, okay, of the cow. Remember, here we are not talking about security or privacy. So I can agree if someone says, hey, I don't want my cow to be monitored all the time. Yes, I agree, but this is not the topic here, okay? So just assume this is good. So, okay, the collar will provide the GPS location of the cow anytime it's requested. Also, it will allow to turn on or turn off an alarm that sounds from the collar if, for instance, the cow goes outside the fence. And most important, we will have a geofencing warning. So when the cow goes out, an asynchronous message will be sent somewhere. It depends. You have to be subscribed, okay? And third-party nodes can be notified with this, okay? And if they are notified, then they can turn on the alarm or turn off the alarm, okay? So how we describe this in this sensor, with this complex sensor, which is more than a sensor, it's actually an actuator, right? Well, this would be the most plain version, okay, of this thing description describing this color, okay. It may seem now a lot of text, but it's not. Let's read it, okay. So the first thing to have is the context. This is always the same. It doesn't change. Then we will have an ID, okay, that usually is provided by the agent, or sorry, the Auroral node. So this is not something you actually need to add. Then we will have a title, and this is a description. This is something that you need to provide, okay? And we really encourage you to provide something meaningful, okay? So in this case, the title is Smart Cow Collar. Perfect. That's a perfect title for the device. That's what the device is. And what it does, well, the description is where this information should go, right? The service is used to locate cows using GPS location obtained by the collar. Perfect. Then we will have properties, okay? Properties are endpoints to which other nodes will be able to access without taking the privacy and the access control list into account. So these are endpoints you want to potentially other nodes to access, okay? Then we have the name of the endpoint. In this case, it's GPS location, but it could be whatever you want. And then again, we have a title and a description that describes this endpoint, okay? So the title is the GPS point, okay, perfect, or just point, or GPS latitude, longitude, great. Then we will have the description, okay? And in this case, is the latitude and longitude provided by the color of the cow, great. Then two Boolean values. This is easy to set. Is this a read only or a write only endpoint, okay? Or neither of them. And this is just a matter of setting true or false. And then we describe the endpoints that other nodes will need to access, okay? In this case, we have two endpoints. And if you realize these endpoints, this will be almost the same in 90% of the cases. If you check the href, in these cases, is the same, okay? And the OP is the operation. And this is not, even if it's a literal, it cannot be anything, okay? There is a list of defined operations, and you need to choose one from that list, okay? The difference here is the content type. So if you ask this endpoint with this content type, you will get JSON-LD 1.1, something similar to what we are looking here, okay? If you do not, and instead you want to get Turtle, which is another format, you will see it in a few slides, then you also can, okay? These two are just for negotiating the content in which other nodes will be able to retrieve this data, okay? And this URL here is not the URL from your pilot, okay? It's the URL of your adapter, okay? Don't worry if you do not get this very well, because when we will see the adapters in next sessions, you will get the 100% view of this, okay? So basically, the takeaway here is we have these documents. Most of this structure is fixed, so you actually do not need to change much. The only thing you need to add is the title and the description in the root of the document and in each property you add, okay? And then the href will be settled, okay? And using the URLs of the agent. And this is something I know right now it's a bit odd, but when we see the adapters, this will be really clear, okay? So this is for reading the properties, okay? The GPS location, how I describe the turn on and turn off the alarm. So actually turning on or turning off, it's not something I read, right? It's more something that I can interact with. And in this case, it's not called property, it's called action, okay? So you can see here, I added this part of the document, okay? The actions. And you can see the actions, they are described quite similar, okay? They have their name, color alarm, in this case. They have a title and they have a description. Again, try to be as much precise and rich here, explaining what they do. Why? And I will tell you why, so you see the benefits on doing this. If you give us well-explained theme descriptions, we can use some black IT magic called machine learning to potentially improve these theme descriptions for you. So you actually do not need to write a very complex thing. If you give us something that is very plain and doesn't have these descriptions or these titles, probably we will not be able to enrich your theme descriptions. What this entails? Well, it will entail that when some node in Aurora wants to perform discovery, they will try to check what you have here to find your infrastructures. So the richer you explain this thing, or the richer you fill this thing description, the best other nodes will be able to find you. Okay, or for them it will be easier. The more simpler you provide the TD, then the harder will become to find them. Okay. So sticking back to this thing description again, we have the name, title, description. This is the same. It's safe. Well, what is this safe and what is this idempotent? If you do not know and you do not care, you can just remove them. Okay. If you want to know what they are, check the standard. Okay, and we can discuss then if your infrastructures actually will be safe and idempotent. Okay, your adapter. I mean. And then again, we have here the form, okay, in which we have here the operation. So you saw first the operation, let me see if I can go back, was read property, okay, this is the operation, I can read a property, and this is invoking an action. So something as naive as this could be a query for discovery that given the one pilot, I ask for all the actions I could perform in that pilot. So what actions can I do? And I will get the list of actions, okay? And again, here we have the endpoint and the content type, okay? So here it will depend on the implementation. Maybe you can receive just an empty request with no information, or maybe this endpoint is expecting a payload with on or off, to turn on or turn off the sound of the alarm, okay? And finally, properties were for accessing, reading, basically, data, right? It doesn't mean you cannot write data, but it's more for things that are requested, right? The actions are, I think intuitively it's understood, are endpoints that allow us to perform something that then it doesn't remain in the system, but it has some physical connotations, right? And what about the events, right? Which are basically the geofencing. So when the cow goes out, I'm getting notified. That would be the event. Well, in this case, it's not a property, it's not an action, it's an event, as you can see here. And the structure is quite the same, okay? They have the name, send warning, okay? Title, cow outside the geofence, great. Well, I assume all of you know what is the geofencing, right? So it means that you have a GPS tracker and a geometry, and if you go outside, that means that you are outside the fence, right? Well, just for clarification. Okay, so again, they have the title, they have the description, and this is again similar, okay? And they have the type, and then the forms. And the forms, again, in this case, we can get the payload or the notification in JSON LD 1.1 or in Turtle, okay? Whatever format you prefer. And this would be like a shallow introduction to the theme description. Do you have questions about these theme descriptions? I hope you have a lot for me.
May I have one?
Yeah, go ahead. I expect you to ask me a lot.
And when you describe the, for example, the actions, you do not describe how to invoke it. You just say that you can invoke it, right?
You can go more in details, but since these are describing endpoints from not from your infrastructure, but from the adapters, I'm quite and the adapters have a settled or a closed way to interact with the other components of the node. That is actual information that you do not need to add because we already know it.
I might extend a little bit on this.
Oh, yeah, please.
So Rui was asking how to invoke it. Do you mean how to call it from how to request this action to be executed?
Yeah, so if you need to post or to get or to what to
yes,
you need
yes.
to send in a payload or whatever.
Okay, so then that's something that you do with the node. In the standard API, there is a section called consumption calls. And actually, in the case, in the semantic description, it's called actions, but in Aurora, we will probably use the call for post property. I think it's the second one in the API and under the consumption section. So basically you will do a post requesting the caller alarm property or action to be changed. And there will be possibility to add a body with, I don't know exactly in this case, what is the string. So I don't know if it would be on off, for instance. So you would be sending the property off and it will be switching off the caller alarm, for instance. So there is an endpoint where you will provide that ID that is in the second row that would identify the object that you want to reach. And then you would provide I think it's called PID in the API. So you would replace PID with the name of that property or action, caller alarm. And then you would provide in the body, for instance, off, and you would send that message to the remote adapter that will change the value.
Exactly.
Okay.
So also, it is likely we will give you already templates for this.
Okay.
Template, and you just need to fill what you need and modify, but I don't think so. Maybe some fields. And
also, the last workshop will be focused on this, actually.
Okay. So the thing description will be tied to the adapter.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes, it will describe which things can you reach eventually with the AURORAL API.
Yeah, because
so think on this way: the adapter gives you the data, and this gives you all the metadata you want to add for other nodes to find your data. So your adapter is giving you temperature, right?
Yeah.
In Celsius, let's say. We even add that unit that probably the original payload doesn't have. Okay. Now, what you could add with this? Well, you could add that you have a temperature sensor that has a measure that gives you temperature and that points to your endpoint. If you have, for instance, an etatmo, you have an endpoint that allows you to increase or decrease the temperature threshold of your house, and so on. So think on these documents as the kind of information you want to provide so other nodes can find yours, right? Or the endpoints of yours.
Yeah, I understand that, and I understand it perfectly. The thing is that, for example, if you are using another adapter, you need to make sure that the adapter exposes the same endpoint for turning on and off the alarm, and that that endpoint expects the payloads on the same format as the other, because the thing doesn't describe it.
Once again?
Yeah, actually, that's the task of the adapter. So in AURORAL, the communication node to node will follow the type that is described in the thing description. So, for instance, in this case, it could be Boolean. It could be just true or false if you're switching off and on. But then once the adapter on the remote adapter that is controlling the cow collars receive this data, it should know that, okay, I'm receiving this action on the endpoint, well, that is described there in the href. So I should know that I'm going to receive a Boolean and I need to send it to the actual endpoint of the infrastructure that is managing that.
Okay.
That's the interoperability action.
So if you allow me, I will give you, I was waiting for this, but Rui went ahead.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, we were going to see this anyway. So this would be the idea of what Jorge is saying in a graphical way. Okay. So underneath the adapter, you will have your premises, your infrastructures, your services, your MQTT, whatever, right? And on top of the adapter, we will have the AURORAL, right? So the goal of the adapter is precisely what Jorge is mentioning. So if you have a payload of, imagine an etatmo, right? You know the etatmo, the thermostat. That has two endpoints, actually. You can increase or decrease the threshold temperature of the house, or you can get the temperature from the house. You can read it, right? So in this case, the only data I can actually read is this one, the temperature. And what the adapter is going to do, take this data and translate it into, and I don't want to go into too much details because this is the second part, into the model and the format consensus in AURORAL, which is or the JSON LD 1.1, right? This one, you can see it here. And in this case, we are having the value, the temperature, and adding the units, okay? So we can actually also add meta information to this, to the just plain JSON, right? So here we could even specify if this is located in Madrid, inside the street, blah, 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 and so on, right? And the same information can be also expressed in Tartel, okay, which is this format here. That is just another serialization, okay? And in this case, the theme descriptions should describe the endpoints here. So basically, it should describe this, the conjunctions of these two rows. So another node can access this adapter, and the adapter will request this data, translate the data, and provide it to the other node that requested information. Okay?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
Okay, so more questions regarding this? So as Jorge mentioned, we will have a session for discovery in which we will probably dig more in details on these theme descriptions. And for instance, can't remember the name of Davide. As Davide was mentioning, right? The difficulties and how to make these things simpler. If you have ideas, tell us. The best thing we can think of is giving you a template, okay? And try to use machine learning to enrich your descriptions. But for that, we need you to fill the templates and also to try here to be as I wouldn't say precise, but to give us information, okay? So do you have any other questions regarding this? Okay, so if you do not have more questions, let's just to show you how to do one. Okay, very quick. I will do one now for you on live, okay, which is actually this one, but just to show you that it's not that difficult. Okay, let me take this one. So actually, if you take one.
May I have a comment just before jumping into this?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Regarding the theme description that you're showing just right now, you have there the read-only and write-only properties. Mm-hmm. Just not to be confusing, this would be enforced probably by the ODRL or some other component, right? Because in the platform you already set object level privacy settings, just because it's not the same thing, just not to be confusing.
So if this is something is already given by the platform, we can just skip this and establish that. That's why I was mentioning the templates, right? So if in the platform we can assume everything can be always read or write, we can just do this and that's it. Or we could even skip these ones if these are not giving special information, right?
Okay, yeah, maybe mention what is optional as well, just in case.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so, okay, since we are mentioning this, what is optional and what is not, let's, as I do this, I will mention it, okay? And also I would like to mention what can be added that we are not discussing now, okay? So what first thing to do, I'm going to have, in this case, the looks active scenario, okay, which is a service that provides information about touristic activities, okay, and it only will have a property. So the context, I don't care, it's the same. The ID, this is something I'm given, so I actually do not need to worry about. So I will just change it for the sake of, but again, this is something given, right?
Yes, actually, it is going to be added by the agent, so you don't need to even to have it there. So you can remove it there from that one if you want.
So actually, I don't have to write. Now, the title. This is something I need to do, okay? Tourism. Activities service, okay? Okay, this is a good title. This is a service that, or endpoint, if you want. Description. This service provides information about activities. Okay. Now, what I could add here, which I didn't show you before, because we are still working on this, but it's also related with what we were mentioning before. Sorry, with what we are going to mention in a few slides above. Next, sorry, is the ontology. So if in the ontology we have a type that is called tourism activity service, I can do this. Okay, and this is kind of the best thing you can add in order for others to find you. Maybe with this service, it's not clear, but if you have a thermometer, you can add this here, okay? And this will be awesome, because when someone wants to find something, they will go to the ontology and say, which types exist in Aurora? And they can just look for this type, okay? This is something optional you can add, okay? And it will depend heavily on the ontology we build, which depends heavily on the requirements we get from you, okay? And we'll talk about this in a few slides. Then we specify the properties. This is, I think, most of the cases in the pilots. It's just data it's been written, right? Sorry. So properties. In this case, we have one that is the activity listing, okay? Activity listing. Okay, great. Then the title, list of available activities. Okay, the description. Okay, well, this endpoint provides a list of ongoing activities. Type string, okay. Read only, well, in this case, true. I would not be able to write, but again, maybe these two fields, they were put here to show you the thing descriptions, but again, Jorge made a very good point. So maybe if this is already settled, we can remove them. These are optional, okay? So what is mandatory is the context, the title, the description, properties, the name, title, description. Type is not mandatory, but it's good to have. Forms is mandatory, and then inside forms, these three are mandatory, okay? So this thing description I'm showing you has the mandatory information you need to provide, basically. Okay. And again, it's very likely that we can, for instance, if you provide us just one form, we can automatically add the other one. Okay. We need to see this. It depends on what you have, but basically, yes. So again, what this property is a red property. What other types of operation do they exist? Well, in this case, in description, what, for instance? Okay, so if you are curious, you need to go here to the standard and inform. Here you have the operation: read only, write only, observable, unobservable, invoke, blah blah blah. Okay. So going back to our example, this is already settled, no problem. The href in this case will be here. I need to add the ID of the object, right, Jorge?
Yes, yes.
And the same here. Okay. And this, I will call this actually adapter.aurora.eu, for instance, just to change a bit the domain. Again, this will be the adapters URL that you will see how you have to specify them. So it's something you will know before.
Yes, in that case, it's not mandatory to have the ID of the object there because it's your endpoint actually. So it's once the node receives the request sent from using the AURORAL API, your adapter will redirect that call to the href or endpoint that you will define there And that endpoint is defined by your infrastructure, so you don't need to have the AURORAL ID.
Okay. Well, it's just to give you an example. Anyway, again, the interesting part is not the href, the content of the href, but the rest of the content. Okay. So as you see, it's quite simple to fill one of these. Okay. So again, now, do you have any questions regarding this? I expect questions, and if you do not have them, you think of something, please drop me an email, and we can discuss. Okay. So any questions? Okay. So if not, I will leave the floor to Jorge, who is going to show you, once we have distinct descriptions, how we register them. Okay. So Jorge, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Please, can you share screen better?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I have to make him.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
1 second, because this is not easy at all. It seems easy, but it's not. So let me check. Oh, Jorge, you can make him also.
Oh,
So I cannot do this if I'm sharing. Okay, Peter, now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, it's working. Thank you.
I can just give a brief introduction while Peter is preparing. We have, as we explained in the previous session, 2 clients in AURORAL platform. One is the web client. Actually, now Peter is showing the platform. That's the web client. You could press login and go and log in into the web interface for configuring the platform. And the second client is the node. That's the client that you would install in your PC or your server, Raspberry Pi, or any compatible hardware. Now, we are going to start showing that second client, the node. You can install it as we showed in the first workshop. And then once you have it, it opens, you can open in the, maybe Peter, can you show that part, how to access the Swagger API?
Mm-hmm. Okay,
so once the node is running, now Peter is going to show how to access the API.
Okay, so I installed the node and it is running in background. And during installation,
Peter, I'm still seeing the AURORAL Avenir platform view. The web.
Sorry. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now it's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. So in background there is a node running, and during installation I left the default port, so it's 81. So I can access this Swagger thing using localhost and port 81. So it's this, and I can register thing. I have here some thing description prepared. So I will use endpoint registry and post registration. There is also some example, but it's outdated. So it will be changed in the future. So for now I will remove it and use this one. Here is thing description. And besides this, you need to include adapter ID, which is then used for identification from adapter.
Just just let me comment on this.
Okay.
The theme descriptions that Andrea was presenting are going to be included in the property TD. So that's something that we will so far not planning to change. And then you need to provide some additional information that is optional at this point. That adapter ID that Peter is showing is in the case that for some infrastructures you already will have IDs defining or identifying some of your items. You can add them there, and that would be a link or an ID that you will then afterwards be able to use to identify your your object in the platform as well, and to interact with it. It will be useful when you will be, for instance, implementing adapters. So if you don't include it, the ID of the platform, of our platform, will also be assigned to the adapter ID. So it's not mandatory, but you might need that kind of adapter for making your for programming your adapter afterwards. Okay, all the rest is fine. Yes, please continue.
Okay, so I will take this and register device in AURORAL node, so I can execute this. And here is a response. So I sent only one thing description, so only one item is created. Here is name extracted from that thing description. This is ID that was assigned to this item, and it's unique. And this password is not, you don't need to use it for anything. Now we can check that item was registered, so I can get all registrations or all items or things that were registered under this node. You can see there is only one. And if I now check items in AURORAL Neighbourhood Manager, there is this new demo sensor which was registered, which was now registered. It's disabled by default, so you need to go to AURORAL Neighbourhood Manager and enable it. Only now it can be used for all the things.
Okay, I will pause you a second. So now you can see how Peter was switching between both clients, so the web client and the node client. Both of them are connected, so every action that you perform in the node will be propagated to the web. And in the web, you can perform those configuration actions like this one that Peter showed. By default, anything that you register is going to be hidden from the others until you enable it. When you enable it, then that starts to be an active item in the platform, and people will be able to see it in your organization. You see just below the access level. That's what I was mentioning, that when you change it, for instance, for the second level partners, that means that also partners will be able to see that device, but only the metadata. Then in future workshops, we will show how to actually change the privacy of your item to share data or measurements. So that's okay, just to make the difference between both clients. So please, Peter, can continue.
Okay, so it's registered, and now I have ID of this item, so I can also retrieve a thing description from my node. So if I use this call, it will retrieve me same thing description as I used during registration. There is also visible that ID that we mentioned is assigned by node, and it's generated. And I think that's all from this. There are also several others endpoints which are used for.
Yes, this is actually what Rui was asking. So the first endpoint would be used. So if you define a property in the description that is possible to be read, then you will be able to interact with it with that endpoint that you see there, providing or replacing OID with the OID of the item that you want to access. PID would be the name of the property, and this first ID is the ID of the item in your local infrastructure that is going to make the request. So for instance, it would be the ID of some service that is collecting data from thermometers, for instance. So the OID would be the OID of sun thermometer, and the PID would be the property temperature, as an example. We will go in detail over this in the last of the 5 workshops. And for each of those calls or endpoints that you see in the Swagger, there is a description. We will be updating it, and if you don't understand some of them, please, that's very useful feedback for us. Just ask, and we can update it and provide more information. As Peter was saying, the registration endpoints would still be working the same way as now, but we will change the description of the actions and provide more information, so it will be easier to understand. Okay, and I think we didn't want to go more in detail. The rest of the calls, we will go through them in the different workshops. Of course, you are free to run your node and see how they work. All of them are already functional, all of those. And for today, we wanted to cover the registration of theme descriptions. Okay, then I think that was all we wanted to show. Oh, we can also remove the registrations if you want. It's the last endpoint of the registry. And it was removed. Yeah, you can show. No, you can go to the web client, and we will not have anymore the sensor.
It's missing.
Okay. Do you have any questions right now?
Yeah, sorry, me again. I see that the body that you sent you to post the registration has some additional fields that are not in the thing description. So you had the adapter ID, and then in the TD you had the thing description itself, right?
Yes, the TD is just what Andrea explained.
Yeah.
And everything outside of the TD, we would like to have it as optional fields. Because you can also, okay, this is not mandatory, but for instance, you could be also sending, please, can you switch to the web just for a second? You see that those items have images. So the calculator is the default one, but you could also send alongside this description an image, and we don't want that image in the thing description, but you could register something with an image. So that would be another optional field. Actually, I think it's functional already, right, Peter?
Yes.
So adapter ID is another optional field that I'm discussing with Andrea that probably will become part of the thing description because it might be useful for many infrastructures or for many use cases. And we might provide other optional fields that as long as they could be useful for you. Like we don't want to add there anything or too many things, just those things that could be interesting for you. So this is the case of the adapter ID that we believe it could be useful for some infrastructures. And if you don't add it, that OID that was assigned after the registration would be assigned as well to the adapter ID. So it's not a problem.
Okay. I was just trying to add one example also, but I'm getting a missing name error, so I need to see what is missing.
Do you have the title?
Yes, I have the title, I have the adapter ID, I have TD. I think I have everything.
You can send it to us if you want by mail, and I will check it.
Yeah,
if
I will.
something is missing.
Yeah, I will see what is happening. There is nothing here that tells you which is the adapter that is responding to this, right?
There is not in this. Okay, in this phase.
You just say that you are providing a status and the temperature, but then what actually implements the getting these properties of the device is another thing.
Okay, that I think will become more clear in the next session. That for that I use adapter ID. This adapter ID that it appears there. When I received a request on the node, for instance, asking about the temperature. So the request would look something like these properties, object properties, the name, the OID of the. Maybe you can show it better down. That is called. Yeah. So it would look something like that. So ID would be your requesting, for instance, service. OID would be the OID of the registered thermometer, and the PID would be temp in that case. So that request would get to my agent, and that agent would look in the thing description for the href. That is a mandatory field, and would redirect to that endpoint, the request, and that endpoint would be either your adapter or directly your item if it's prepared to respond. For instance, it could be some software that is already complying with AURORAL the data model, for instance. But typically would be the adapter, that endpoint, and that's why I use the adapter ID, because then I can map with the actual item in your infrastructure.
Okay.
So it's relaying the request downwards, and then it depends on how you want to do it. Right now, maybe it's a little bit abstract, but basically what we are doing is sending this request from the agent to some adapter, and then how the adapter distributes the request to the infrastructure is up to the person that will configure the adapter.
The adapter. Okay. Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Welcome. Also, another thing, the Node. Which version of Node, or when did you install it?
Maybe I need to do a git pull, right?
I think, yeah, you can update it. I don't know if you already have the version that can be updated with the CLI, or otherwise you can download it again if you want to be sure.
Okay, yeah, I will do it. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so then if there are no more questions, we can give back the floor to Andrea.
Okay, so I'm not sure how tired you are, or if you want to have a small break. Do you see my screen, right?
Yes.
If you want to have a small break, or you want to go on, we still have the last part, which it was almost explained because we went a bit ahead, but it's not very large. So as you want, do you want to have a 5 minutes and we see at 1:20?
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so in that case, let's stop a bit and see each other at 13:20. So in 5 minutes, basically. Okay, time for grab a coffee, basically. Okay, so see you in 5 minutes.
Okay, see you.
If you have any question in the meanwhile, I'm here to answer. So now Juan is going to present the second part. Okay, so I leave the floor to him.
Well, I will talk about the interoperability, the adapters, and the ontologies. So let's begin. In AURORAL, inside the AURORAL nodes, all data must be provided as any RDF serialization, such as JSON LT, as Andrea explained before. And thus, the information must be converted from heterogeneous data source to semantic data source. So in AURORAL, in the AURORAL nodes, we have adapters to perform the extrapolation of data. Once the data in the AURORAL nodes is in the same format, we achieve the syntactic interoperability. Automatically, once the syntactic interoperability was achieved, we have the semantic interoperability enabled. So, but in order to realize the semantic interoperability, the data introduced has to be aligned to an ontology. So the ontologies are an essential part of the interoperability. So I will explain first the ontologies and later the adapters. It's a little reminder of the ontology that I explained it the other day. So in AURORAL, we follow the linked open terms methodology that consists in 4-stage workflow. The first one is the ontology requirement specification, and this is the most important phase for the pilots. And there is the second, implementation, the third, the publication, and the maintenance. So for the ontology requirement specification, all pilots must fill the requirement document. And if the data is not filled, it's not possible to operate in AURORAL. And due to AURORAL node, AURORAL deadlines, this data must be filled in the next 2 weeks. Some people has already filled the data, and we will check this week, but the rest of the pilot need to fill this data. I will explain it again. So how to fill the columns. The first one is the priority. In case you will develop the one component first, put it in high, the second in medium. This I want to develop the component, but not in a short-term deadline, and low if you have planned to develop in the future. What the data needed is what the data for example, weather information, temperature information, data available of an activity, etc. The contact person for the adapter, an email. If the UPN has any question, I will contact with this email. The data origin, for example, a database, an API, a sensor. If the data is available or planned, it's two options, available or planned, or planned. The source of the data, a link for the API, a database, a sensor, etc. If the data is read-only, write-only, or both. The format of the data, a JSON, a CSV, etc. And the data license. If yes, probably it will be yes. Specify the license. And there is one more that I added yesterday, that is the authority method. for example, reader token or OAuth 2. Okay, now, any doubt with this, with these columns? Okay, so I will continue. With the adapters. The adapters is inside the AURORAL node and is the adapter translate the data from heterogeneous source into JSON-LD or Tartar. That is the RDF serialization. There are two types of adapters: the programmatic adapters and the declarative adapters. And the adapters must be chosen and deployed by the pilots. Respect the declarative adapters, there is no programming required, and it's an advantage, but the user must provide the translation mappings. And respect the programmatic adapters, they are more flexible because you develop it from scratch, but the programming is required. So you need to code if you want one programmatic adapter. So this slide was shown by Andrea before, but you can see how the JSON is converted to JSON-LD or Tartar. And a quick resume, we have seen in this session the advantages of the AURORAL node, and how to manage theme description in AURORAL, the ontologies, and a quick view of the adapters. In the next session, we will explain in more detail the programmatic adapter and the other one. We need some tasks for the next session. The most important is fill the ontology requirements. Please, if you have any doubt with this, you can write me and ask me everything. You can write to Maria, to Andrea, but we need it in the next 2 weeks. And that's all. If you have any question or something.
Okay, so with this, we finish, okay, today's technical meeting. Is there any question for us? Okay, I take silence as not.
Andrea?
Yes.
I think that, I don't know, my colleague is the same. I will process all the information that have been provided today, and eventually, in case I may do like I did today, bothering you and your colleagues at the beginning of the next session, if it is possible, or if you prefer, we can send emails in order to do not modify the schedule of the next workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Do you suggest?
Well, either options for me are good. So if you think it's something we can solve in not much time, we can discuss during the first part of the meeting. If you think this will be something that will take time or has a depth discussion, you can send us an email, and we could even meet, discuss about questions or even ideas. As I was mentioning before, if you have ideas on how, or thoughts on how these could be facilitated, we can analyze them. Okay, so we are 100% available. Anything that fits you.
Well, I have a question about the approach that you intend to follow in this workshop. I mean, I've seen that you ask and your colleagues ask for questions from the participants, from the pilots. And I think that this is a very good approach, as if we can share doubts or
Yes.
things that we have not well understood together, or provide feedbacks in real time together, that would speed up the process of the implementation and development and implementation. So that's the reason why I mentioned the two possibilities. But it's mainly up to you, because I know the time is very short, and the things that have to be explained are quite a few. So I don't want to be some kind of I don't want to interfere too much with your job.
I agree with you. It's actually, I think that's the point, right? To have this this conversation. So maybe the best way to proceed is send us an email with the thoughts or the doubts. And if we see they will take a lot of time, we can schedule a different slot from the technical meetings. And if it's something we can solve during the technical meeting, we will solve it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes. Also, David, we are adding. We are scheduling these meetings with enough time, so we have some buffer for questions, exactly because we wanted to make it interactive. You see that today we already finished, and it's still 20 minutes, and we had time for helping Rui. So don't be afraid if you have any questions that come up. No problem at all. We can help you at the moment.
Exactly.
But I would go back. I mean, it's a general consideration, and I don't want to bring the discussion too much away from the path. But the general consideration is the following. I mean, the approach to install the node and to set all the devices that will provide data, and in order to allow this standardization of the formatting of the flux that goes to AURORAL, from a technical point of view, it's understandable. It's something that can be done easily, but from a person that has a certain level of expertise. And I go back to my first consideration. I try to figure out how a new user of AURORAL, and I think of the stakeholder that we are engaging at the pilot region. I try to figure out how one of those persons would react to this kind of procedure, because that's it's a very, I mean, writing code and writing things is not such a big deal, but you need to know how to do that. And basically 99% of the people that we are engaging don't have a clue about that. So they would need an expert in order to implement and to put in the network platforms or devices to share data and to participate to the AURORAL platform. So I think in my view, but probably I'm misunderstanding. Tell me if it is the case. In my view, this could represent not a secondary aspect to be taken into account if we want to promote digitalization of rural areas. Because if you look at the structure of the population based on the age, you will see that in this area, the prevailing age is towards from 40 years old to 50, and sometimes it's from 50 to 70 and more. So I don't know how to deal with that, because in the stakeholder panel we will have to deal with these practical aspects in order to increase the impact of the project. So probably I'm considering something that is not for sure is not on this work package, but since I'm working on different work packages, I have to keep the links between them. And this is a link that I find difficult to define. So don't know if I have explained my point of view in an understandable way.
Yes, yes. Just to sum up and be in sync. So I understand that you are concerned that on the one hand, from the technical point of view, this is something feasible and something that can be achieved. But the problem is that in the rural areas, they will not count with this expertise or these technical skills, and that will hinder the adoption of this proposal, right?
Exactly.
So
and this is something that we mentioned at some stage. Probably we didn't stress enough the point, but if it has to be done, I do that now, at least for Piedmont region. That's a very, very important aspect.
Yes. Well, I would like to ask, what's the solution? And hopefully, I mean, have the solution.
I in order to be proactive and not to only complain, let's say, while you were presenting the case of the virtual fencing,
yes.
Okay, that is something that you can even download an app on your mobile that does this kind of service. So I was trying to take into account the point of view of a farmer that has already made a huge step in considering the fact that of a virtual fencing. And then I have to present him the possibility of activating this service through AURORAL. But I know that the risk, in my view, is that he would prefer then the service on the mobile, because he would consider the trade-off of complexity and without with the possibility of sharing data, for instance, and the situation presented by the app, that is, you are not sharing data with anyone, but you will have a very user-friendly and usable tool ready to be used in your pocket, because the mobile is something that you bring with you.
Yeah.
And the risk that I see is that the farmer would choose the second option. That is not our target, because we would like the farmer to use to join the AURORAL platform.
Well,
so,
yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so to conclude, so as a proactive, I don't know how much proactive, but so at this stage, this is the best I can come out. Maybe in the next or by email, I will come out with something more specific. But also, if we could, I mean, we could try to share more. Probably something that has not been done enough, but we have time and we can do that. Share more some practical example that I can tell you this works with our stakeholder types, and you could like see how this kind of tools operates with function and the level of usability they have, to understand if we can converge on a similar, not exactly the same, but a similar friendly level, usability level also for our AURORAL platform.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, David, I really think it's interesting, this discussion. So again, please, thanks for bringing this on the table, and please let's keep having this discussion about this topic, because I agree with you. It's a really important point. And then let's try to, from the technical point of view, make things, when possible, as simpler as possible. Although I have to say that in the example you were giving me, so since we have time and if there is no more questions, I think we can discuss a bit more on this. So it's more a selling point. So if I live nearby my workplace, okay, I can buy a bicycle that costs me $20 and I can go to my work. Why should I spend my money in a car? But people that lives nearby the work has a car usually. Why so? If it's more expensive, and it's not only more expensive, it also has expenses during anytime you need to put some gas, right? So maybe in your example, the element is not, the problem is not the technical part. The problem is that what that farmer wants and what is being sold of Aurora. But anyway, I agree with you on the fact that we should try to do things as simpler as possible. But there is one level that is the technical, that let's say it's what it can be done. Then there is another level that is the usability, and we can work on that level with you. And I'm really looking forward hearing if you have ideas, or not right now, when you will gather some feedback, give us some ideas on that layer of usability. And then there is the level of the selling of the product. So, well, the technical team we can work, of course, in the usability layer. And we hope we will provide a friendly one. But then there is a huge gap between the usability and the adoption, that is the selling. And maybe there we need to find the correct points to sell this product, right?
Yeah, but first of all, let me say that's something that I haven't said, but I mean, this is a huge work, and I acknowledge that, because what is being done here, it's very, very complex, and it's a great achievement. So I start from this consideration that I'm not saying that this is okay. Just to make it clear, it's better to say it loudly rather than being misunderstood. So since it is such a very important work, the thing that I was just signaling is that users that I'm dealing with at this stage cannot implement all the function that you explain in order to speak to be straight, okay? So they will always need someone like me, or someone even with more expertise than me, to as an human interface with the platform, in order to bring together the devices and the data, and to share the data and to access the services. I think that this is something that we should discuss in some ways, and see how much can be done, and in this project, what can be done in the future. But I thought that it was a good contribution from me to make this point out, and what, as I said, what is reasonably achievable, we work to do that, and what is technically too complex or out of the goal of the project, it will be something for the next proposal. Let's say it like that.
Yes, I cannot say anything on the opposite direction. I agree with you. And again, we are willing to work in that usability layer as much as we can, of course.
As a pilot, I'm curious to know if from the other, if it is something that was noticed only at the Piedmont region, so we can eventually better calibrate our activities and ask for some experience from the other pilots. But I was curious to know if the other pilots have similar kind of considerations, or it's only Piedmont.
If I can add something also, David, I believe that actually that selling point is one of the key issues that we have been already discussing in many forums, is what's in it for us, and this in the point of view of the end user. So what's in it for us, in the sense that there may be tools or applications, devices, sensors, controllers, whatever, even eventually at some point ready-made services that provide similar operations. But the key here, I think, is the interoperability and the option to change the services regardless of the implementations or the devices, and to adopt an horizontal, more horizontal services. So to say that, to combine information that can come from different sources and utilize it in different ways. Of course, this is something that has to have a selling point for the end user, but the end user, of course, needs to be willing to have some more investment. And when I say investment, may not only be in the sense of money, maybe in the sense of technology, or maybe in the sense of training or learning or whatever, so that they can better use these kind of digital services in their locations. Of course, maybe some consultation may be needed external, and the idea is that if you can use the software or the tools, you could provide instead, or buy instead, the consultation services or the training services, so to help you to use this kind of new tools, new digital tools. What we, in Alentejo case, we will have, of course, many similar fears, let's say, from the end users. Our goal would be to provide some tools that can be exchanged among the various players without the need to go on such a low level. So to say that you provide an application, let's say I'm giving you a naive example just to clarify. If you provide something that makes load diagram analysis for one location, you could use it in another location without changing too much, or without the need to have a high degree of knowledge, so to connect things. And so it could be a way to use the same services in many locations. Of course, there will be new services or new devices that will come up during the course of the project, or even after the duration of the project, that may need to have some more expert interaction. But our goal would be to create something that could be reutilized, so that it doesn't need to have that much of expert interaction.
Thank you, Rui. That was very, also for the last example. And this is the same way that we approach the implementation here in Piedmont, to define a service that can be replicated elsewhere without large modification. I was just thinking to the further development of other things related to the investment platform and so on. But yeah, we have approached the implementation in Piedmont in a similar way that you described.
You have no more question?
Yes.
Of the meeting.
Okay, so is there any more question? Last chance to ask. Okay, if not,